Okay, so yeah, where do I start? Basically, I wanted to start this call by giving a basic introduction of BricksMembers. Of course, you know already that it's better integrated into Bricks than other plugins, but from some comments that I got, I think that some people don't really realize what that means, because I really tried to give a completely different experience from other plugins when it comes to building membership sites and LMS, learning management as well. And so I would say let's start with a few examples. Like the first example that I thought is really good to give you here is that we have this course listings here, for example. And now if you would use traditional plugins, then you would probably expect that you have a element or module or so that you can back into your builder. Let's say we're in Bricks here. And then you would probably look for some elements here, you drag that in, and then you have a course list that you can somehow customize, but not exactly the way you want necessarily. Like you can maybe have some checkboxes or so to control what it's being displayed, but you can't really control where it's displayed or anything. And that's where like the approach from BricksMembers comes in. I want you to build as much as possible natively in Bricks, and BricksMembers essentially just feeds all the data that's missing there so that you can build your membership sites completely dynamic. So to continue with this example here, now you see the course listing, and here, this is just a query loop. Like we have this card wrapper here, query loop as you're used to, post type, course, menu order. ASC is always important with BricksMembers because we're using menu order all the time. And then you have those filters here. So here, for example, I have now this user level match filter turned on, set to match, and that means that it would only show me courses here that I have access to. Now currently I'm on a user level that shows me all of those courses. And now let's say I change my user level. Let's say I change it to only one course. And I go back inside here, then you see suddenly I only have access to one course. I will come to those courses here in a second. Just playing around here. So let's turn it back on. And then as it is with query loops in Bricks, you can build exactly as you want. Like you can completely define the content as you're used to. And I think that's the beauty of Bricks. That's why I initially thought that Bricks is actually extremely good for membership sites, because you can handle dynamic data so well, and ultimately membership sites, it's all about dynamic data. So yeah, that's why I even started building a membership site with Bricks, and then came to the idea to make this plugin. And now there is, let me just look, I have a little outline here for the live stream. So let's get a bit deeper into query filters, like what you in the current version at least can do with it. Now we have user level match here. And there we have multiple options. Like you can, for example, also select match plus empty. That's, for example, if you have some courses or content that does not have any user levels applied, then that would also show up here in that list, but I currently don't have that. Then, of course, also the opposite, like no match. And that's quite interesting, because here now, for example, I have a second query loop. And this is set to no match. And if I understand the user level again, it's not styled way currently, but you see what I'm doing here. And essentially I have a list of grayed out and slightly blurry courses, so that members directly know, okay, these courses are missing. And you can even then do whatever you want. Like you can insert some links here. For example, I have that link now to my actual sales page. So that in case someone wants to have this course, then he can go to my website directly and purchase it. And that's obviously a lot better as if you would just redirect the user to another page or so, because here you can make everything a lot more dynamic. You have full control over your content. Okay, just a moment. So, but of course, as you can see, we have a lot more filters here. We also, so user level match, how that works is you essentially have user levels or required levels assigned to posts. You can do that with every post in WordPress, also terms, it works everywhere. And then it looks if the user does have the required level or not, and does it dynamically here. Then you also have users include levels, like that's essentially static. Like I can give it some level IDs, and it then always only displays the content if the user has the right ID here. And it, of course, also works with multiple IDs. It mustn't be only one. To show you already how that works is you set user levels up here simply in the backend. I will come later to the backend, but it's quite straightforward. You just create the levels, basically. You don't really have to do anything, and it works instantly. And then we have others, like it's already when it comes to learning management, we already have some advanced features like drip logic here. So you can select that it only shows posts that are unlocked or locked, or where the time is ready or the prerequisites are ready from our drip rules. I will also show you drip rules in a second. That's also part of the backend. It's actually quite powerful. Like you can do a lot of stuff there. And progress tracking is also already available. So you can only show completed posts or no completed posts. You can order by, like select if it's like oldest first from progress completed or the newest, the same for drip. Like lots of options here. We also have a like button system already. You see those like buttons here. It's more like a community feature. So if someone likes a post, you can just leave a like. You can also, of course, use your custom icons there. And you can then also show posts here that are either liked or not liked by the user. It's quite interesting. You can not necessarily only use it for showing how many people like posts, but you can also use that essentially as kind of a bookmark functionality, so that the user can show all the posts that he liked on his own page. I think that's also quite useful. Minimum likes, you have that too. That's more of a community. And this here is really important within structure boundary. Now, that is more important for example, let's say I would want to list lessons here. Then within structure boundary means that it, for example, would only show lessons within the current course. Like here you can select top level, parent level, etc. And that essentially defines what boundary it has. Now, it is a bit hard to understand maybe in the beginning, because we're not having course or module or so here. We have top level, level 2, level 3, etc. And the reason for that is that if you're looking at the back end, you can completely create your own content structures. Like here we have a relatively basic structure with course, module, lesson, video, but you can go really wild here. Like we have this content structure page, and you can really select how many levels you want. Like here we have 2, 3 levels, 4 levels, 5 levels, 6 levels, even names it automatically, but you can change the naming however you want. For example, like on the actual membership side that I run it, this is my testing environment here is based on, I also have a 2-level structure, which is called series and episodes. And this is quite powerful because now I could also set it up like that. Episodes, series, of course, written small, and then create the structure. Should give it a name, of course, test. Yeah, nothing else. Now we run some computations. I will come later to that. Now you see we have the second structure here created, and we have test here. And now I can start adding series and stuff. So it's pretty powerful. You can have as many of those structures as you want. Like you can really structure your content. And that's why here in the front end, it makes more sense to call it top level, level 2, etc. Because then top level is essentially like here the course. Level 2 would be module, level 3 lesson, and so on. So yeah, if you got into that one time, it's actually not that hard to understand. Yeah, that's why we name it like that. And yeah, so these are the query loop filters. What is next? Then, of course, what also makes it really powerful is that you have a different way to restrict content. So, for example, we are here now on a lesson page. And how it would be with traditional membership plugins is that you have shortcodes if you want to restrict content on a page. And shortcodes, the way it would usually work is that, for example, like in Bricks at least, you would have to use a shortcode element. that is already pretty limiting. We don't even have text elements here or so. And then in the shortcode element, you would add something like, let's say, restrict, and then your content, something like that. And this is a problem, like you can really only do it within a shortcode field or within one element. It's not that you can use the restrict tag maybe on top here and then another closing restrict tag at the bottom to like restrict the whole content and structure it the way you want in BricksMembers, but you can really only show or hide text. And that's not really dynamic. So the way how we handle that in BricksMembers is that you have conditional logic, and you can actually see that already. Just have to have a quick look where I have it applied here. Oh, wait. Yeah, here. So here we have our conditional logic filters, and it works essentially the same as our query loop filters, like as user level match again is yes. And so when I'm on the lesson page, I currently have access here. So even when I refresh it, you see all the content is here. And now if I change my user level again, let's say I think it was create a crash course or so to this one, and I refresh, then you see you don't have access to this content. Please purchase access here. Of course, you can customize it however you want, because the way it works here is you see at the very bottom, I have a container and basic text here, and the container is user level match set to no in the conditions. So this shows up if the user does not meet the user level that's required for this post. And yeah, again, like it's the same as with a query loop. You can completely put all content in here as you like. You can structure it, style it. It's really up to you what you do. Set it back. I just prefer if you always see all content. So there it is again. So you see, like this is a lot more powerful, and of course there are also lots of other conditions. Let's have a quick. Oh, what did I do it? Ah, yeah, okay. Here, if I go in here, if you scroll down, you have BricksMembers here. You already know the user level match. Then we essentially have the same again as with query loop filters, like has access to levels that you can select actual user levels directly. It's basically the same as what we have there with the ID. Yeah. And then the same here with progress, completed, not completed, drip, unlocked, locked, time ready, prerequisites ready, post like count. So basically all the same as with query loop filters. And yeah, I think you can see already where that leads. Like it's so much more flexible because you can build everything exactly as you want in Bricks Builder, and you're not really limited anymore. And then, of course, we also have dynamic tags. For that, I have a complete documentation here with all dynamic tags, because this is already way beyond 100 tags and modifier combinations. But to also show you a bit why that is actually important, it matters quite a bit, is this example here. If you're just looking at something really basic, like putting out the name of the course in the header while you're on a lesson page, if you would do that now with a custom solution, let's say you would either structure your content with categories and posts, or maybe hierarchical post ordering or other solutions, relationship fields or so, then it can actually be really complicated in Bricks to just display the name of the course here without having a custom field for the course name or so, because you would essentially have to add a query loop or so, or you would need a relationship field and then output the idea of the relationship field, not the ID, the title. And here it is just that you directly have a structure tag, BRM structure, parent, top level. It's again like top level, parent level, etc. We have all that stuff here. And then it displays the course. For example, if I would change that now to, let's say, parent, parent double, but it works. So there you see now it's the module name instead of the course name, because now I change it to the parent of the lesson, and that is a module. So it works instantly. I'll change it back. And yeah, so there are also like, we have so many dynamic tags. For progress, you can display the percentage, etc. Lots of stuff. You also see that here, for example, like here I'm using the progress bar element. but you can display like the percentage and the completed lessons, the total lessons, etc., all with dynamic tags here. And essentially, even this element here, the progress bar, you don't actually need it. You could build your complete own progress bars because all the data that you need for that is exposed. So yeah, there's one more thing I would like to show you, which is really cool. Like we don't only have dynamic tags for displaying the actual data that you need for a membership, but also to style it better. Let me just have a quick look because the document is so long. There is the active tag. Yeah, BRM active. Now, this is pretty cool. So if I now go in here and go to the style tab and select CSS, let's just use a query loop element. That's a bit better. Yeah, CSS tab. Then in CSS class, you can type in BRM active. And now what this tag does is it gives the course that we're currently on an active class. Of course, this is now a course overview page, so here I can't show you that. But if you run a query loop, for example, maybe I can show you that actually. Yeah, we have it implemented. Forgot that. Here's the modules. Where do we have it now? Just have to check where I implemented it. Yeah, here you see BRM active. And now if you look in the front end, you see already like this here is in primary color because there we have the BRM active class applied. So what this dynamic tag does is it compares if the post in that query loop is the same post that you're on, or it is within one of the same posts that you're on according to the content structure. And if yes, it adds the BRM active class, so you can style everything accordingly. And we have 3 of those tags. There's also BRM completed and BRM unlocked. And so I think it's self-explanatory. Like if a element, a post is completed, then it adds the completed class and unlocked in the unlocked class. So completed is for progress tracking and drip for drip unlocked. So you can even style that differently. So we are also like BricksMembers also helps you with styling. It's not only the raw data, but even some more. And yeah, so this is basically how it works in the front end. Of course, there's a lot I could show you now, but I think for that, the documentation is there. And in the upcoming weeks, starting from this week, I will also publish lots of tutorials. So far, does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Maybe. Okay. Okay, recording. Okay. Thanks, Craig, for following. Are you watching right now? Like you can use your microphone or write in the chat if you have any questions so far.
Nothing so far, Pascal. Yeah, all looking good. Yeah, so from my perspective, it'll be a membership site, not so much on the courses or the LMS side of things. But yeah, the same principles would apply in my case. So it's just a case of locking down content. So yeah, the principles would be exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Ian, are you back?
I'm just listening in the car at the minute on my way to pick my daughter up. So I didn't want to miss it. She just rang at the most inopportunity. She rang at the wrong time, basically.
Okay, no worries. Okay, then let's continue. Let me show you the back end. So we've been across it already. Yeah, let's just go through everything, but yeah, I will keep it short. So basically, when you start BricksMembers after putting in your license, I can quickly show you the license page here. It's straightforward. You type in your license key, activate license, and the plugin gets activated. Then on the settings page, you have quite a few options here, like display settings, breadcrumb separator. We have a breadcrumb dynamic tag, which you can define the separator for here. Then you can create user roles. I, for example, like to use student for my members. The thing is, it's essentially the same as a subscriber user role when it comes to all their rights, but I just like to keep it separated from subscribers just in case I want to add something else in the future. And then this is also quite powerful about BricksMembers. Like, I want to have a lot of functionalities in BricksMembers, but I also want to keep this plugin lean. So I want to make it possible for people to only use to only activate what they actually use, so that only the parts of the plugin loads that you need. So by standard, all of that here is deactivated, and you essentially only have the content structures available, like that was this one here, and the user levels. And so if you need anything more, let's say you want to restrict menu items, then you can activate that. If you need the like button, activate that. Protected downloads, I will show you in a second how that works. Progress tracking, drip content, you can like only enable what you really need. And especially when it comes to drip content and progress tracking, that's actually pretty important, because these are really the heavy modules, like calculating the progress and drip. That adds quite a bit of code and also computations, but we're keeping it quite performant actually, because we pre-compute a lot of stuff. And yeah, then also talking about performance, what this plugin also does on activation is it runs a small test to test how fast your host is, because as mentioned, we're running quite a few pre-computations, and I want to ensure that there are no timeouts or so, because that could be a problem. But of course, I also want to ensure that the speed that your host gives you is maxed out. That's why you get a performance tier assigned on the plugin activation, and based on that, we are adjusting the batches that we run when we do our computations. So it's a little safety feature, but also ensures that it's always pretty fast. Then under maintenance, we have a database environment doctor. That's important if you migrate to another host that has another database version especially, or if you switch between normal MySQL and MariaDB, because we use some columns, like we essentially indexing JSON, for example, and that's not possible really with every database version. So we're adjusting the database based on we're adjusting our database columns on the actual database. And so if you migrate, then you would have to run this database checks here. So going back to settings, you see here what my database currently says, and would show you if there are any issues. If yes, then you would get a button, you press the button, it automatically adjusts the database. And after that, you would have to use the exported database tables, user data from the migration tools here. It's actually quite easy. It's all documented, and yeah, most of the time you won't need it anyway. And then we have some more tools here. You likely will never need them, but just in case, sometimes maybe when, especially with downloads, you might sometimes want to flush a rewrite rule. So it's a bit easier here than always going under under settings here and permalinks and stuff. And all these content navigation updates, rebuild progress system, and drip unlocks backfill. These are essentially all the computations that we run. And if you encounter any issues on the page in the front end, then you can just run any of those here, depending on where the issue is, and it's most likely solved directly. But if that happens, you should still write me a support mail, because that, of course, should never happen. So if something gets messed up, then yeah, it's better when I know about it and I can fix it. And advanced tab, nothing special here. You can export all the settings from BricksMembers and import them, uninstall options. And what's actually quite nice is the test data generator here. Like, that is based on the tutorials that we have in the documentation. You can select the data from a tutorial here or another random one and click the generate demo content button, or also this button here to create Bricks templates. And then it also shows you what will be created. Like, essentially it creates a content structure for you, and it fills that automatically with course data. And Bricks templates, you also find that here's all those demo templates. And that's pretty cool. Like, even if you don't have a project that you're currently working on, you can just use the test data quickly to test the plugin out, play around, and it all doesn't take that much time, because yeah, setting everything up, including all the post templates, that can sometimes be can sometimes be quite time intensive. So much about this tab. Then user levels, like that's super easy. You just click the add new level button on top, add a level name. It's really the only mandatory field that you need here. All the description and link target is optional. Link target is only if you list user levels on a user profile page, for example, then this is where the link would go. You can, for example, if you have a user level specifically for one course, then you can link it to the course page, for example. So that's what it's there for. And then here, if you have some redirect rules for specific levels, then they will also show up here, but currently don't have that for this level. And I think the rest I don't have to explain anything here. Then content structures. I kind of showed you already how that works, so I don't have to show that again. And then access control. This is something that you would definitely need. You, for example, don't want when a user is logged in that he sees the WordPress top bar, for example. Like this is something that you can set up here with the admin access restrictions. And generally with membership sites, it's also that whenever a non-logged in user enters the site, you directly want to redirect him to the registration page or the login page. And this is here, you just switch this button and it's directly handled for you. And I also use Bricks here for that, because if you go to Bricks settings, you have the authentication pages here. So this logic either redirects you to the standard WordPress login page if you don't have any authentication pages set up with Bricks. And if you have them set up, then it will just use those pages here. And they're also automatically excluded from redirects, because otherwise you would essentially lock yourself out if you switch this button here. But you can also add more exception pages. Like if you have maybe some pages that you want to show for marketing purposes or so, then you can just list them here and it's fine. It's actually quite easy. Like you can just type in here any internal content and it will directly select that for you. Quite powerful. And my voice dies. And then we have a general redirect. That means that, like, I don't recommend that, but in case you really want to have it so that if someone enters a page that he shouldn't have access to, that he is directly redirected to one certain page. Like I personally prefer to do it with Bricks conditional logic, as I showed you before, and as I also mentioned here again. But just in case you want to build a super basic membership site like you would usually do with other plugins, you can also do that here. I just don't recommend that. And then we also have specific redirect rules here. Like in case you want only specific user levels to be redirected to a certain page if they don't have access, you can also set that up here. And these rules will also appear on the user level edit pages here in the redirect rules. Oh, now you can even create a rule here. Why wasn't it that there before? To look into that. By the way, you can also see users with this level here and content requiring this level. I have to blur that out. It's not good now. Then next one is content hierarchy management. You will likely not need that because you can handle that natively in the content structures, but it is handy in case you switch from some custom solutions to Bricks Builder and you want to bulk assign parents. Like what I mean here is that in case you have a lesson post, for example, and you want to assign parent modules to it in batches, then you can do that here. So let me show you that. You select your content structure, target level. So I mentioned lesson here. And then the grouping, it could be, for example, a taxonomy term, category. And then as you can see, it automatically groups those by category. So if you had, for example, before you chose categories for your courses and then you assign posts to those categories, then you can use that here quickly to assign all the new parent course posts in those structures to your lesson posts. So it's directly all there. It is even more powerful. Like here, for example, you can also use relationship fields from ACF or so. So then it's, in my case, here grouped even better. So when you need it, it's great to have, but you likely won't. And then drip content, this is where it gets really powerful because you can literally do everything that you can imagine with those drip rules. So how it works is, at first, you have the strip timeline settings, which by standard is set to reset on reassignment. That means that whenever you change a drip access rule or anything else on the website that affects drip, it's all recalculated, and users that currently have access to a page or to a post might lose access. So this is not a mode that you should run on a live site. This is more for development to really test all your rules, etc. Because otherwise, you would not lose access again when you change a rule, and it would confuse you. But the moment you go live, you would have to switch it to preserve previous unlocked content, because then it's like when a user has some unlocked content and you change a drip rule, for example, it will stay unlocked for him. It's important because otherwise the users might get a bit angry if they suddenly don't have access anymore to something. And yeah, after that, you just set up the drip rules. So at first on the target, you define a rule name, then you select what content you want to target within the content structures. So you'll select course, for example, and your lessons. And then also for which user levels those rules should count. And then on the schedule, you have the initial delay and the trigger. So for example, you can say here, after user registration or after level assignment, you have to wait, I don't know, 7 days or so until you get access to the first content. Then based on that, you can also use timed auto drip. That means that, for example, every day a new post is being unlocked for a user. You can also select, of course, to release the first item immediately, so users don't have to wait. And you can even like select the scope here that it should stays inside. The scope is important. For example, if I set the scope here to course, then and like release first item immediately, it would mean that every first lesson in every course is directly available for everyone. But if I don't select the scope here, then it would essentially mean it's only the first lesson that you have available. So that's like important here. Usually you want to select course here, sometimes even module. Yeah, so just to make it a bit more user-friendly. And then we have cohort. It's also, that's actually really nice if you, maybe you want to mix up your courses or so a bit with content. Because what you can do here is you select a date in the future. For example, now let's select the 1st January here. And then you select when it should start. Like everyone starts on cohort date. That literally means that like everyone has access to that content from that date and that time. And you can also select no one starts before the cohort date. And that means that it also unlocks on that date, but only if someone already has all the prerequisites and stuff. Like prerequisites is what we're coming now. This is that people have to complete other posts before. So here, for example, you can select require previous item. And then you can, for example, say the previous lesson, for example, within a course always has to be completed for the next post to unlock, or you can also set it to require all previous items. It's quite powerful, but I would usually recommend to stick with require previous item, because most of the time it means the same and it requires a bit less computation, because then it only has to look at one post always if that is completed with the progress tracking or not. But for require all previous items, it would always have to look up all posts, and that obviously takes a bit more computing power, and it's not usually necessary. And what's also quite powerful, what you have here is also require these specific posts. So now, for example, here I could use a completely different lesson that has nothing to do with the current course or so, and tell it that that also has to be completed. That's like most of the time you probably also won't really use that, but in case you have it sometimes that a certain lesson is important for a user or a student to understand something in another lesson, then you can select that here and you ensure that he completed the lesson before as well. So you see, pretty powerful here, and it goes even further. Like you can also use and or logic. So for example, in combined prerequisites, you can say and or. That means then that it either or that he either has to complete the specific post that you selected or the previous post. If you select or if you're in AND mode, he has to complete both before. And we also have here an overall condition logic, which says all conditions must be met and or any condition can unlock. That essentially differentiates between time-based and prerequisites-based. So if you select and, then both the timing conditions here have to be met and the prerequisites. And if you select or, then it can either be the prerequisites that he completed all the posts that he should before, or it is from a certain time available. That's also like one reason why in the query loop filters and the where is it? Conditional logic, we also differentiate between, is it drip, normal, unlocked, and locked. Like this completely acknowledges those and or rules. But if you select time ready or prerequisites ready, you can also show content that the user might not necessarily already have complete access to, but when the time is already ready or the prerequisites are ready. Sometimes, especially if you want to show some messages, for example, that can be useful. Let's say a user already has access to a post by time, like a certain date is already reached, or maybe it's a third post on day 3 and it is already day 3, then you can tell them the message, hey, you would already have access to this post, but you have to complete the previous post before. So this like time ready, prerequisites ready, etc. This is better for messages. But well, you probably also find some other use cases for that. And yeah, so this is the whole drip logic. You can save as many drip rules as you want. They all appear here at the bottom. And yeah, as you can see, it's quite powerful. What I still plan to add in the future is that we can also add some drip rules for specific posts, which I think makes a bit more sense, especially when it comes to requiring specific posts. Then it's a bit easier to set up. But I think overall, it's already so powerful because you can really set up everything that you can imagine when it comes to drip content. So yeah, this is how drip works. And yeah, let's have a look at those next pages here. I won't explain too much here because it's quite self-explanatory actually. For example, here, this is where you apply user levels or required levels to posts and literally to every post or term on WordPress. And you can filter them by all sorts of stuff like categories, etc., terms, so that you can add user levels in bulk, because obviously it's a bit annoying to go through every single post and add them. But yeah, let me also show you quickly how it actually looks on a post page. Because now if you want to apply user levels on a single post, then you can do that here in a normal WordPress post edit screen. It's all here. Yeah, I think quite self-explanatory. Just wanted to show you that. You can also do that in the structures. We have those quick edit modals here, where you can add some content quickly. You can insert video URLs or IDs or codes or whatever, duration, video image, featured image. You can also assign the required levels, all sorts of stuff. And what's quite powerful here is also when it comes to required levels, you have the inherit required levels from parent option. So when you create a new post, you can automatically inherit all those required levels. Or if you're in a top level post, a parent, then you can also do the opposite, apply level changes to all child posts. So if I would now add a new required level here, then it would automatically apply to all child posts here of that course. Also quite powerful. And that's why I generally think that for content in those structures, you don't usually need those bulk assign boxes here. They are more useful if you, for example, have a block and you want to restrict the posts in that block. Then you can, for example, assign to posts by term here. And yeah, you get them grouped all by your categories and stuff. Of course, you can also assign to terms for like archive pages and yeah, also by relationship fields if you use some advanced custom field stuff. Like you have a lot of options here. And yeah, next one is a CSV import export. It's quite self-explanatory too. It's essentially if you have CSVs from any other platform, really, it can be another WordPress plugin, membership plugin, could be Teachable or whatever you used before for your courses. You just export a CSV there where some field, any field in that CSV has an indicator for the user level that you want to apply. Then you can map the user levels here, and all the other columns like email, first name, etc. You can also add more custom fields here and map them. Then you just upload the CSV, import it, and you know the rest essentially. You can also export users. That's, for example, useful if you want to ever migrate a site, or let's say you have a staging site where you did some changes and then maybe some new users registered in the same time. Then you can export users quickly, import them to the staging and go live before. Quite helpful. And yeah, level automation. Well, I'm talking so much. Let me drink a bit. By the way, if you have any questions, raise your hands. Yeah, I'm talking all the time here. Okay, next up is user level automation rules. That's basically like sometimes when you create new posts, you want that certain user levels are automatically applied. Like, for example, I have this elite level here and some others that should generally apply to all posts, because users that have those levels have access to everything on the membership side. So that's why I generally have them set to post type all, taxonomy to all, like everything. The moment I create a piece of content, I want the user levels to be applied. And you can also set others to more specific ones, for example, to set them automatically for lesson posts within a course. Okay, yeah, let's then come to the payment stuff, what we call webhooks here, because that's what it is. Now, I think this is where many people are still a bit scared of, because it looks quite technical, but it's actually super easy. And the reason why I prefer this webhook integration for payment provider connection instead of having payment providers directly connected is that we essentially have all payment providers in here directly, and not like that we have maybe only PayPal and Stripe and maybe one or two others, and then all other people are essentially locked out. And I use this system, like this was one of the functionalities that I implement at first, like when I essentially was just vibe coding for myself before I actually started this plugin. And that's why I use this functionality since April already on my own membership site, and there hasn't been a single issue. So that's why I think that this webhook stuff is really powerful, and it's actually quite easy to set up, because now if you look at it, it looks a bit complicated, like you have all those fields here, but the way how you start doing that is that you go to your webhook provider and your payment provider in the webhook section, like here it is in Lemon Squeezy. Otherwise, I'm on a test mode here, like those data that I show you here won't do anything. So essentially, you just create a new webhook in your payment provider. It takes a moment here. I'm probably logged out. No, I'm not logged out. Awesome. Then you directly see in your payment provider what it wants from you. Like here, it wants the URL. Cool. So you click copy for the webhook URL, paste it. The secret is already in here. So instead of using the secret field, you could copy it from here. Or you could use the webhook secret directly. Cancel. No, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Okay, now got a new one, doesn't matter. Then you copy that and paste it in here. You select what events should trigger a webhook to that, save webhook, and that's it. Like now your webhook is already set up and it will send to your website. It's really that easy. And I make it even easier for you. You can select the provider here, like in my case, for example, I could select Lemon Squeezy. Cool, and it automatically only shows me the fields that we actually need. And you have all sorts of others here. Over the past 2 days, I recognize that quite a few people are interested in Fluent Card and SureCard, Cope Card as well. So I just added those here. They will be available in the next version that comes out, likely version 0.93. So you have all those presets here directly. It's just select that, and yeah, okay, it's the same here as in Lemon Squeezy, so it just leaves that. And yeah, you don't really need much more. And then next one, like after that, you still have to configure your webhook, but it's also super easy. Now you go to the webhook mapping page, and ideally before you go to that page, you send a test webhook from your payment provider by just triggering a sale or so in the test mode. And then you will see this webhook here in the last received webhook data. So it's just a test webhook that I sent here now with this test webhook functionality, because I'm in a local environment, and local environment in my case can't receive webhooks. Yeah, that's why I've implemented this functionality here basically for local environments. But yeah, if you're now on a normal website, not local, then you would see the whole webhook here. And then you have two options. You can either select a provider here again, like in my case here, Lemon Squeezy again, cool, autofill fields, and it fills all the fields for me. I don't really have to do anything. Of course, works with all sorts of other providers. And if your provider is maybe not in that list, you see all the data here already. Like here, for example, we have email, and then I have here the data attributes user email field. So I just copy that, paste it in here, and then the field is there. The only thing to really understand logical-wise here is what these fields do here, because they are important, the user level webhook field and variant level webhook field. These are the fields that contain the unique identifiers for your user levels. So for example, on Lemon Squeezy, data attributes product name or first order item product name would contain something like Learn with Pascal here, which is the product name that I sell there. And then we also have the same with variant name. It's not in here, but if I go to Lemon Squeezy, for example, you can see that here in the webhook. Where is it? Learn with Pascal, variant name default. And so these contain the data that you insert here. So I have all the user levels here that I've set up before, and then I can map product names, product IDs, or whatever unique identifiers you have here to those user levels. So here, as you can see, all my courses. Then for Learn with Pascal, I have different variants as well. And based on this mapping here, whenever a webhook comes in, the user levels are automatically set for the user, and the user is created, at least if you enable user creation and updating here. And that's really all you need to know, except for like one more thing. If you sell subscriptions, you also want to set up the change user level subscription trigger here, subscription updated from the event field. And then you want to select the user levels that should be switched around for subscriptions, because what would usually happen, let's say you have it like I do here, maybe some of those levels here are subscription based and others are lifetime. Let's say someone can buy a course and pay a lifetime price, but then also a subscription to get access to even more content. Then if the moment he would change the subscription, all his user levels would usually get deleted, so he wouldn't have lifetime access anymore to the course. But when you set it up here, then the logic knows which levels are subscription levels, and it only rotates between those levels, and all other levels stay unaffected. So for example, if someone now purchases Learn with Pascal subscription, then later switches to Elite, but you also purchased the Cinematic GoPro Masterclass before, then it would essentially remove the, like if I set it up here with subscription now, it would remove the subscription level and add the Elite level, and the GoPro Masterclass level would be completely untouched. He would still have access to that. So this is why, like, this is also quite important here to understand. It's important the moment you sell subscriptions to tell the plugin what user levels, or what user levels should be rotated in subscriptions. So, and that's basically it. Like, I understand, like, at first when you see it, it looks a bit difficult, but the moment you set it up one time, it's actually that easy, and it stays like that forever. You never have to touch it again. It just works. So it's actually great and integrates with pretty much every payment provider. Yes, Craig?
So in terms of subscription, so when your subscription has lapsed, what is managing the shift in the level? Is it I mean, what?
It's a good question. This is here the event key. Like if I go to the Lemon Squeezy webhook, let me just look for it. Event name in that case here, I think in the one that I usually receive, it's event key.
Okay, so I mean, like in my case, I'd be using Fluent Cart. There'd be a trigger there in Fluent Cart, which would then kick in on this side.
Fluent Cart. So Fluent Cart would be action or event name. Like you can use comma separated here. And then remove from user level would be Fluent Cart order refunded, Fluent Cart subscription canceled, or Fluent Cart subscription expired. Then it would automatically remove the user level.
Okay.
It's also like yeah, it's hard to understand the first time. It looks difficult, but it's actually easy. Like you just have this event field, and depending on the value of the event field, it either adds or removes user levels. That's why it's also like then so important to have those change user levels here for subscriptions, that it only rotates user levels then instead of removing all levels. Yeah. So
and I mean, I'm really impressed that you've included, if there are lifetime purchases and that doesn't get.
The thing is, I essentially set up this logic for myself, and I had
for yourself
subscription and lifetime purchases on my website, so I somehow had to make it work. And of course, I didn't have such a nice UI when I started out. This is what I added later to this functionality, because like the way how it was before, I could not present it to anyone. So yeah, this is how it works.
Yes, I mean, certainly I've noticed as we've been going through, I'm like, this is somebody who has managed a LMS or a subscription site before and has just had the frustration of other membership plugins not doing what they need to do.
That's like the big reason why I built those content structures here. Like I've been changing providers quite a few times, like two WordPress plugins and Teachable. And then it's like you have different content structures and you're like, oh shit, how do I implement my courses now here? Mm-hmm. And so this is so much better. You just set it up the way you want and done. Just like the backend logic was really hard to program actually, because it has to dynamically adjust all the time. Yeah, maybe I did not tell you that. By the way, this is important to mention. In the content structures, when you create them, you see the progress tracking level. So for example, in the structure I have it set to lesson. You see that here also. And that's important because the moment, like this only appears if you have progress tracking module turned on. And this is because the logic has to know on which level it has to track the progress. Like usually you would use lesson for that, because then you check off the lessons when you completed one. Here in the front end, where is it? Here it looks like that. Here's this button mark is incomplete because that is already completed. Let's go to another one. Like here, mark is complete, and then the logic knows it's completed. And now, if you could do that on every single level, the complete logic would get confused, because then it's impossible to track progress. Because like you want to know how much percent does a user have done in a single course. So it needs to know, okay, the user has, let's say, 5 out of 10 lesson completed, so 50%. And if you could now also check maybe the module, then it would get confused, obviously. So that's really important here when you use progress tracking and you create content structures to set it up. But that's not a big deal if you don't activate progress tracking in the beginning, because you can at any time assign or change it later. So it's not urgent. You can first start setting up all your content structures and add that later. And we've been to web.
And then earlier on, it was on settings where you've got your student instead of a subscriber. Where did you set up your student? Is that in user levels?
This is here. You just type in a role name.
Oh, okay.
Say test. Role created successfully. Now we see it here, test. I can also select it and remove it again if I don't want to. Cool, now it's removed. So this is super simple. And then in webhook mapping, you select that here, like user role. Here you see I have that set to student.
Okay, yes, all right, perfect.
It knows what roles to choose. Yeah, this is also a cool functionality here with the name split settings. Because like Lemon Squeezy, for example, doesn't have a first name and last name field, but I personally like to have greetings for a user with a first name. And so what we have here is, so here's the full name field and the delimiter, which is usually just a space. And it automatically then, based on the delimiter, detects what the first name and last name is and automatically fills out the first name and last name fields. It's like if you look at the Lemon Squeezy webhook here you see username Pascal Basel. So it sees the space here and automatically knows, okay, first name, last name. Yeah, so another little gimmick. And yeah, then we have content migration. I won't go into that now because it looks difficult, it is. but it's powerful because, for example, if you have some custom solutions before how you structured your content, you can essentially move that all over. But I think it's a bit too much to explain it all now. For that, it's best to read the documentation. I will also make a tutorial in the future. But
so when we say content migration, is this from if you're moving across from another plugin?
Yeah, exactly. Or if you move your website to another host, for example, like therefore we have database table export, import, and also user data export, import. But what I plan in the future is to make these three at least here an assistant, because I do find like there's so much text in here now, it's quite confusing. So with an assistant, I could make it a lot better. But essentially what you do here, for example, like before I had hierarchical terms for courses and modules, and then I assigned level posts, lesson posts to the module categories, which is a pretty confusing structure that I used there back then. And here it automatically detects that, like it automatically detects now that we have taxonomy category and that there are categories that have two defs. And then you can map the first def to course, for example, the second def to module, and then def used by child posts too. So then it knows that the lesson post is connected to the module. And then you select lesson post here. And now what it does is it converts the terms to posts and automatically assigns the child post to the terms. So to visualize that, like the courses here, for example, these were all categories before, and then the modules were childs of those categories, and the lessons have been lesson posts, like a custom post type. And now with this migration function, it automatically created those posts here and assigned all the lesson posts to the modules and the modules to the courses, because based on that logic here, detected the structure. So if you like have some really weird custom logic like I did, you are capable to pretty much move everything over to the content structures that you like. Also have field migration here to migrate custom fields to the native BricksMembers fields. And you can also assign parents based on relationship fields. Like here, for example, at my video posts, sorted by SEO. I removed the relationships already, so it doesn't show up anymore. But yeah, here you can like add parents even in a different way if you move content over. But again, like in a future version, that will all become a wizard here, because I think it's a bit confusing the way how I designed that. Yes, so as for migration, there's one more thing before I come to the performance.
And then have you used any custom post types within any of this? So if I've got, for instance, with MetaBox, and I create taxonomies and that, BricksMembers will recognize.
It depends what you want to do. Like you can restrict them all with user levels, so that only the right users can access that. But things like progress tracking, for example, or drip logic would not work on those posts. For that, you need to use the native structures.
All right. Well, yeah, then it'll work for me. That's fine.
Yeah, that's like there are these bulk assignment tools here come for you.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so there you can restrict everything pretty fast. Yeah, like it depends. Like just like you have freedom, it's not like that you necessarily have to stick to the content structures of BricksMembers. It's just if you don't use them, you lose progress tracking and drip content ability. But if you don't necessarily need that, you can also restrict just your normal WordPress content and all custom post type terms, etc.
Yes, I mean, for my use case, that's exactly what it's going to be. So, I mean, it's great as well that, where is it? In the settings, I think you can switch off some of those items. Yeah, so that's fantastic that you have that built in.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, then also quite special, we have protected downloads. And in this plugin, they're actually protected. Like if you upload a file here, oh, this is a bug? No, it's not a bug, it just took some time. Then it is actually protected, the file. Like Google will not find the file and no one can open the file. Like even if you would have a link to the file in that folder and you send it to anyone, even yourself, you could not access it. Like you can really only access that via links from BricksMembers. Here, I can show you that. This is also, again, your query loop. Here, that's a query loop with dynamic tags for downloads. Let me quickly show you. Download icon. Yeah, here you see BRM download. That just puts out the URL. And now I click on that. Now it downloaded because I have the correct user level. Let's select here, what levels is it? Only the Learn with Pascal stuff. So if I now unassign that user level, yeah, this of course, but off that for now. Now conditional logic, please.
So what you're saying, if I share the URL, if I'm able to get the URL and I share that with a friend, they won't be able to download.
Yeah, like you see now, it doesn't download anymore. It reloads, but no download is happening.
Okay, great stuff.
So that's protected.
That's a feature I'll use for sure.
Yeah, it's quite powerful. What was actually, this is actually quite easy to do, is you essentially restrict the files with HD access and let PHP bypass it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like I did add a downloads element here, which is not actually needed because you can do all of that with dynamic tags. But in the download element, I want to also enhance that for version 1.0, so that you have a JavaScript there essentially that puts out a message if someone doesn't have access. Because right now I find it confusing, like it just opens a new page, but it doesn't download anything, so the user doesn't really know what's going on. So I think that can still be a bit adjusted, yeah. So yeah, that's something that will also be implemented. And yeah, the rest here is straightforward. I would say like just add your title for the download, some text, and the file. What will also come soon is support here for Amazon AWS, and Cloudflare R2, and potentially some other hosts here, because it's obviously not great to always host your files on WordPress, even if they are protected, just because it adds so much to all your hosting limits, like your traffic.
Yeah. Okay, so connecting some CDNs. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. It's also a bit faster for the users then. And yeah, let's come to performance. That's something that I'm really proud of. Now we do have a benchmark page here actually, which like you can set up complete benchmarks here based on actual content that you have here. Like you define a test cohort, it essentially creates some test users there. And then those test users, they do even do things like progress, tracking completions, etc., to emulate a scenario that is somewhat realistic, but you should still take that with a grain of salt, because these are stress tests. Like even the realistic scenarios here are not exact user behavior. They always try to ensure that a lot of page requests overlap between users, and then based on that, it shows you data here. Like you see, for example, in my last test, the concurrency, that means that the 128 users essentially would have a page request in exactly the same second, or exactly the same 200 milliseconds or so, so that it overlaps. And that is really stressing for servers. And there you see, if it gets to 128, this is the moment where the test stopped, because then we got too many errors and the timings were also not good anymore. But it's actually already a lot, because usually you have about 1% of your course students active. So and even if 1% is active, it doesn't necessarily mean that they all open a new page in exactly the same second, right? So
yes,
128 users opening a page on the same second until we really get to the level where the pages are not really usable anymore, it is already a lot.
And, yes, and almost like the chances are of that scenario happening is very unlikely.
Yeah, like there you would really need probably 1 million users, or at least a couple 100,000 for that to happen. And this year is also like, it's not actually good, because that's tested on a local environment, and the amount of PHP workers on local environments are limited, while on actual hostings, even cheap hostings like Hostinger, you have, I think, 100 usually, sometimes even more PHP workers. And the more PHP workers you have, the more of those concurrent requests are possible. So for actual hosts, you will actually get even better performance than that here. Depending on the host, of course, like hosting, I will give you a bit less performance than a premium hosting, for example, but I think that's the case with every plugin. Yeah, so this is a nice testing tools I've implemented, so you can test it for yourself in case you're planning on really going enterprise level, and also for YouTube reviewers, of course, to see like how it actually performs. But what I find even more interesting, what I want to show you is the enable query counter. So when you enable that, what it does is it adds this little counter here to the front. And now you see for this one here, we are having 29 queries. Let me just set the user level again so that it queries all posts. And there you can really see the power of BricksMembers. So you see now we have 40 BricksMembers queries out of 200 total WordPress queries. And now what essentially where queries come from is from the filters, from conditional logic, from dynamic tags, etc. And now I want to show something here that is super cool in the query loop. When I don't use any filter from BricksMembers, all BricksMembers filters are off now. Then you see it's suddenly 86 queries. Why is that? The reason is we have the progress tracking, we have the like button and the continue button. The continue, you can see it in the bottom left corner here, automatically links to the next lesson after the last completed one. And now essentially that is somewhere around 5 queries here. Like it would have to read the percentage, it would have to read the completed post, the total amount of posts, the link here to the next lesson, would even have to compute that, and it would also have to read if the post is already liked or not and how often it's liked. So there's actually quite a lot of queries per post, and we have 10 posts here. So all those numbers here are times 10. But now what BricksMembers does is, at least if you use BricksMembers filters or you click the enable batch loading filter here, is that it automatically detects the post IDs that finally appear on the page and what BricksMembers data is being used inside the query loop. So it recognizes all the dynamic tags, the progress tracking, etc. And then you see it suddenly goes down to 39 from 86. The reason is now because it knows all those things, it automatically batches all of that and caches everything aggressively that is being needed for computing all this data on the fly. And that's why essentially, like per post, I think you only have 1 or 2 queries now instead of so many queries that it was before. So this is a pretty powerful feature. And this is like just one where you can see it directly how powerful it actually is when it comes to performance. What we also have, what you can't really see, is a so-called snapshot system, which is that essentially if I add an element that uses certain data at the top of the page, or like any element, it would first look in the snapshot if the data that it needs is available in the snapshot, which is kind of a, like you can imagine it as a cache that exists within the page, or that is assigned to the current page load. And if it's not available, it reads it from the database or computes it and saves it into that snapshot. And then if you have another element that needs the same data, it also looks first in the snapshot. And if the data is already there, it takes it from there instead of extra querying the database again or doing any PHP computations. So the data is directly there. That's why like pages that you build with BricksMembers, at least when it comes to BricksMembers data, they scale extremely well. Like even if you have a page with like thousands of elements, which realistically you would never do, but you could, because all the data is always only read and computed once, never more than one time, just because of that snapshot system. And the reason why I focus so much on performance here is that membership sites are oftentimes completely impossible to cache because every page has to adjust to the user. So you can't really do any like browser caching, of course, but regular caching where you essentially serve static HTML files. And that's a big problem. That's why I think it is important for membership sites to keep all your logic as efficient as possible. And yeah, with all those things here like that batch query loop loading, etc., I try to do that as good as possible. And of course, we also have like all those pre-computations to keep the database structure efficient. I can also show that quickly. Like basically, whenever you do changes to such a structure, or you want to do, you have to go into edit mode. That activates things like those arrows here, where you can move courses and lessons, etc. around. And the moment you click Save Edits, you see those progress bars appearing, which computes content navigation, progress tracking, and drip unlocks, because we all pre-compute that data to a certain degree, not completely. We still keep it efficient in the database, but we do the computations so that generally it never requires more than one database query to get any data, and maybe sometimes a tiny bit of computation. And yeah, that's why always those progress bars run. And yeah, that's basically the first level of performance improvements that we have in BricksMembers. Maybe I can even show you that. Like if I go into the database, essentially we have those BRM tables here. And what just got computed with the content navigation was those structure paths here. Let's have a look here, for example. Yeah, that seems to be pretty good. Now, this is essentially the data that computes, like it directly knows which the next and the previous post is. It knows the boundaries. This is actually quite smart, because for boundaries, we store the, like a boundary, for example, here would now be the lesson. And in the lesson, we have course video posts. And so sometimes like you only want to show videos that are within that lesson, right? So the way how we store that is that we save the ID, the menu order number of the first lesson and the last lesson, and how many lessons total are in there. And then instead of having to query every single post there or so to recognize which posts are in the current lesson, which videos, it knows, it can essentially tell the database directly, hey, give me video posts starting from post 23. And I want to have a number of 3 posts. So this is one query, and we directly have all post IDs, and we can directly retrieve the post names, etc. So that's super efficient. And ancestry IDs, like it directly knows which course it is in and which module. And on top, this is all JSON data. So it's essentially just one database query, and all data that we need to do all our computations for this specific post is directly in the cache. So also like super powerful, this stuff. And yeah, then we have a bit more here, like progress tracking, for example, that's stored so that we can quickly use indexes to retrieve from the database the current percentage or so. And we don't even calculate percentage, like we only write the completed count and the totals to the database, and it's essentially like an Excel column where it automatically calculates data for you. That's like it automatically calculates the percentage based on the total items and the completed count. So our PHP doesn't even do that. The database handles that automatically. It's like you see that here in the structures. It's pretty powerful. Like here %, there you see essentially telling the database how it should calculate that. So we're really trying to optimize performance wherever possible. I'm sure there are still some things that we could improve, and whenever I find something, I will. But it's already really fast. Yeah, that's, I think, everything, or? Yeah. So I would say, like, if you still have more questions, then let's come to that now.
Great stuff, Pascal. Well done. I think you've put something together here. I suppose, and I mean, having just read some of the comments from that were happening on Facebook, I mean, just more your sort of long-term, your approach, your long-term support towards this, and WordPress just being as fickle as it is. I mean, we've seen quickly go under, and I mean, it can happen to anyone. I mean, such is business. But yeah, what sort of support do you have around you? Because you also have a YouTube channel, which I know it takes an inordinate amount of time.
It's actually not that much of a problem, because like actually a YouTube channel is one reason also why I started BricksMembers, because on my YouTube channel I want to have more creative freedom. So like, I don't know if you're into cameras, but the camera market is pretty boring now because it's all good. And I don't really just want to make videos about cameras, but I also noticed that when I usually somehow switch my content a little bit, it means that I usually get a lot less views, and that's obviously bad for sponsors. And I want to go more on a level with my YouTube channel to where I started before, where I just mostly make videos, at least that I just want to make, that I enjoy. And well, if I have a second income source, or actually a third one, because I also do a bit of freelancing occasionally, yeah, with BricksMembers, it's just better. Like I will have more fun on YouTube. I will have a more stable income, hopefully through BricksMembers. So it's all better. And also when, of course, the budget allows it more through BricksMembers, then I can also let a video editor edit more of my videos. And usually the editing part is what takes a lot of time. So yeah, it's actually not really a problem. But yeah, to answer my question, like, okay, now you asked about support, but like I'm actually really excited about BricksMembers, because I spent now about 8 or 9 months to develop all that. And like there were lots of nights that took until like 2 or 3 a.m. And I think you can see like how excited I am about it. Along the performance optimizations and stuff is actually something that I enjoy it. Like it makes a lot of fun to implement stuff like that, to see like how the queries go lower and lower, and you see, hey, there's still a bit of performance I can squeeze out and stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And like my goal with BricksMembers is to get it on a level where it has all functionalities that you really want from a great learning management and membership plugin all in once, connects with our payment processors, and lets you build membership sites or course sites, whatever you want to call it, completely creatively in BricksMembers. And I think that's a great new vision. Like I'm actually excited about it. And yeah, this is kind of my new project, like that. my new life project, I would say.
This is your new life. Very much so. But I mean, this is a phenomenal base that you have.
Thanks.
I mean, if this is where you're starting off from, it's a great base. And there's a number of items. Having never done an LMS before, yeah, there's a lot of considerations. As you were going through, I was like, oh yeah, how about that? When that changes, there's the variables in running an LMS become quite something. My use case is going to be, yeah, putting content behind a paywall. So that's a lot easier than the LMS that I can see. But yeah, I get all the benefits that as you're tweaking on the LMS side.
There are probably lots of people that won't use every single feature, but I think that's like what excites me. Like my initial thought was also just to make like a basic plugin, but then I thought, hey, wait, like if you have that basic plugin, maybe you want a bit more. And then I also thought I want to add a bit more in the future. Then I wrote down, okay, what are the things that we definitely have to add? And that is progress tracking, drip logic, and downloads. And then when I started thinking about how to implement progress and drip, I noticed that it's actually quite complicated, and that if you don't have a solid foundation in place, you will get tons of problems down the road. Like, I don't know, did you ever develop anything like not necessarily a big plugin, but something even smaller? Essentially, the architecture is always that you have APIs, or also called helper functions, where essentially every module can later access. Like the functions that we have in the plugin is at first the core functionality is actually called BRM core, and that manages all the user level stuff. Then we have the structure path manager that does all the structure path stuff that I showed in the database. And that essentially, for example, now if drip, for example, needs to know what post came before a current post, it would ask the structure path manager for that data, and then it gets that. And therefore, it's so important to have a solid foundation, because otherwise you have the same functionality duplicated in all sorts of parts of the plugin. Like that's actually what happens a lot when people vibe code. And that's largely inefficient. And it's also really hard to debug something, because then you never know, is that now a problem with the current function that we're working on, or is it somewhere else in the plugin? But if you always access the same data from the same functions, then you know if there's a problem somewhere, it's either that we use a wrong, or we accept the wrong data format somewhere, or it is somewhere in the core that we somehow messed something up, and we can look in a previous version what we might have messed up and stuff. So yeah, it's actually important to have this foundation, because I know from there I can relatively quickly move on with future features like quizzes, etc.
Sure. And then I just want to ask, is Bunny.net in one of the considerations for in your secure downloads?
Exactly. I think we talked about that in chat, right?
No, you just mentioned you were going to look at some of the CDNs, but
yeah. I mean, you mentioned that, and I heard BunnyNet a couple of times before. I didn't use it myself, but yeah, it seems to be quite famous, so why not?
Okay, perfect.
It's actually quite easy, because I have the license service plugin that does all the managing of the licenses on the BricksMembers.com page, which I also programmed myself, and there essentially I already use Cloudflare R2 to serve all the plugin files, the updates. And so the logic of inserting your credentials and just, what did I want to say, like typing in the file names, clicking save, and it automatically recognizes all of that. I have the logic already, just from the licensing plugin. So it's actually not
it works there.
Yeah.
Well, Pascal, Magic, thank you very much. Thank you for this webinar.
Thank you too. Thanks for joining.
I'm impressed. And yes.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing more from our side. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you too. And Mohammed, do you also have any questions? If he's still there, it was quite long. No, I don't think so. Okay, then I would say let's end that here. Yeah, we'll also upload that to you, so
thank you.
You can see it, or you can rewatch it as well. But yeah, I will also make lots of tutorials now to explain everything a bit better. I know reading all that is a bit hard.
It's the boring work now.
Yeah.
The boring work.
Documentation. Always recorded together with YouTube videos, and it's not a big deal actually.
And I suppose with AI these days, it's also a lot easier.
What is easier?
Just with AI.
Yeah,
the sub-editing, the transcribing, all of that stuff.
It's like for example, to write the documentation, especially developer documentation, the AI essentially knows the code base and can directly write the posts from that. So it's actually, it can save so much time. It's wild, yeah. Yes. But you have to be careful. Like AI also does a lot of shit.
Just whilst I have you on in person, your drop-down menu on your website, under documentation, troubleshooting is just there's just a spello with troubleshooting.
Have a quick look.
So just in the menu itself, just go up to your documentation, and in the drop down, just the spelling for troubleshooting.
This is correct, or not correct, but I changed the category structure and likely forgot to change it in the menu here. Yeah, thanks for making me aware of that. I will update that now.
Pleasure. A quick win.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Pascal.
Okay. Have a good one. Bye.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Mohammed too.